Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show. So excited to be back with you this week and to be joined by my very special guest, Lanette Pottle. Welcome, Lanette. So excited to have you.
I am excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Haley.
Absolutely. I want to dive right in. I'm so excited about this conversation. I want to just dive right in, but I want to start with giving our listeners just a little bit of background, and then we'll get into your story. Um, all good things. You've always loved solving mysteries, which I think is so cool. And now you've turned that into a career, right? Like storytelling. Now you unravel real world mysteries of self publishing to help women gain confidence, knowledge, and skills needed to release their first book. What a gift. What a blessing. You're the host of the She Gets Published podcast and publisher at Positivity Lady Press. Also, the author of your own two books, Small Steps, Big Impact, and Small Steps, Big Shifts. You may have heard Lanette on places like the Amazon bestseller list, Authority Magazine, Hay House Radio, Tiny Buddha, Inspire Me Today, or speaking at places like the Maine Women's Conference and the Big Red Dot on the TEDx stage. Oh my goodness, so excited to have you. Isn't it fun when other people read your bio? You're like, oh my gosh, I've done some things, some cool things.
Right.
It's so cool. Well, welcome, Lanette. I'm excited to have this time with you and for you to be able to share. Just kind of maybe start with how you got to this point in your life, right? I really feel like you are truly an embodiment of a soul-centered CEO, not only in your business but also in your life. And sometimes that road is not an easy one, right? To find the thing that lights us up. And so I'd love for you to take some time to share a little bit about your story and what you might have had to overcome or go through to get to this present moment.
Oh my gosh, you are so right. The road is never a straight one, is it?
Easy, never easy. Always.
Oh goodness. The messy middle lasts a really, really long time, or at least that's my story. And it started at a young age for me. So it was a journey to where I'm at today, supporting women in releasing their first book. But my story started at 17 and becoming pregnant, my senior year of high school. And what does that have to do with where I'm at today? It's part of my personal growth journey. And I gave up all of my dreams at 17 to raise my son. And what a gift he has been in my life, as well as my other four children. But he started this journey for me. And when he was at college, he actually introduced me to a book that started this transformation for me in my life. And I was well into my 30s, late in my 30s when that happened. And so I had a couple of careers. I had a career in hospitality management, so customer service. I love interacting with people and creating experiences. And then my next career was in human resources. So again, it was about creating creating experiences for people, but just in a different way. And also the training and development pieces were what really lit me up. And then it's been 5 years ago now, I left my HR career to pursue my business full time. I had a side hustle and some ups and downs with all of that. And I have to say, I loved my HR career until I didn't. Like, it was one of those things that was a very quick
Yep.
break. And as I started to do my own personal development work, it just became clear that my values were no longer in alignment with that particular road, with that path. So when I left to start my business full time, I actually started as a success coach. That was kind of what I talked about myself as being, because I would help people in whatever it was that they wanted, that I had tools and processes to help people to be successful in whatever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And through some experimenting with that, realized, yes, I could support people and I could help people. It's really difficult to help people to see what the potential is when you're talking in such broad terms. And so we kind of did some evolution and switch into life and business strategist, which felt better. It felt more aligned because really what I'm about is growing your business, but first deciding what is it that you want in your life? What is the quality of your life? What are the things that are important to you? What do you value? And then building your business around that.
Mm.
So that felt really good. And my business grew and things were going really well. And once the pandemic came, there were some really big shifts in my own personal life. We experienced some deep loss. So I went through, actually, 2020 was a spectacularly crazy year for me with highs and lows. So I had deep grief.
Mhm.
And it was 2020 when I gave my TEDx talk,
Right.
right? Like the thing that I had desired to do that had been on my vision board for years
Yeah.
and manifesting that amidst all of this kind of chaos. Through that process, I started to notice some things. People ask you different questions when there's something about magical about that big red dot. I mean, there's no denying it. And people started asking me different questions and paying more attention to my writing and what had I done in self-publishing and different things. And these conversations started to shift. And what I noticed were there was a great desire for women to be able to share their stories, but there's so much they didn't know. It's an intimidating process. And quite honestly, I wouldn't have my first solo book that I released, it was only because of a mentor and a mastermind that I was part of. And we were supporting another woman about she was releasing her book, and the mentor, Jamia Drummond Bay, I'll just drop her name. She said, well, you can get this book out in 30 days. And so I'm a cheerleader, and I'm like, yes, you can do this, you can do this. And Jamia turned to me and she said, and you can too. And I'm like, whoa, put on the brakes. Like, you don't know what's going on in my life. And all of the arguing my limitations, right? Have you ever done that before? Arguing your limitations? But it sparked something in me, and I went on to go ahead and release my first book. But what I know is that wouldn't have happened if that exchange hadn't happened. So as I start having these conversations with women about their desire to share their wisdom and their knowledge, and all of this is bottled up inside, just waiting to go out and impact the world. And
Right.
so it feels like as have transitioned my focus into supporting women to release that, it feels like this divine, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like this big release of transference of wisdom that the ripple effects just never end.
I love that.
So it's been a crazy, it's one of those things Steve Jobs talks about, looking back and connecting the dots.
Yep.
And in my mind's eye, and I could draw this out, I'm sure of it, but in my mind's eye, I have this physical map that almost looks like a constellation map
Right.
of the person that I met that introduced me to someone who, right? It's just like
Like
the
a bunch of
hardship that I
breadcrumbs.
went through that revealed something. It helped me to learn something about myself too. It's just crazy. We all have that within us. And sometimes we're so busy in doing that
Right.
we don't stop to notice that, but it's phenomenal. It's almost mystical, really, when you look back and see how things have unfolded perfectly for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I think that's one of those moments when you just have to take a deep breath and a slow exhale and say, wow, okay,
Wow.
get it. I get it now. I understand now why all of those things had to happen, all of those connections, all of those experiences, all the heartbreaks, all the suffering, and all the celebrations, right? It's almost
Yeah.
they all weave together. And it feels so beautiful that, and I think as entrepreneurs and especially as women, a lot of us are able to take our messiness and turn it into a message and to a blessing, and things that that maybe feel messy at the time end up being an extraordinary way to serve, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
it feels like that's exactly what you have done. You've taken those moments of like, how am I going to get through this? You know, how is this going to happen? And you weave them together into a beautiful way of serving. And that's so lovely.
And what I love about when I reflect on my story also is, like I mentioned, in hospitality, it's creating experiences. There's a piece of each of my careers, each of my recreations of myself, so to speak, that make perfect sense and are like a really integral piece of the puzzle for
Yeah.
the work that I'm doing today. There's a little piece of each of it that's brought forward into this work.
Yeah. I think I've had a few of those moments too when I'm like, oh, I get it. Now I know why I had to have that job or, that
Right.
test or whatever it were, or learn that piece of work,
Hmm.
how it all kind of plays together. It's so cool. I love the reflection and I love what you're creating. So right now, I know you've got a couple of things that you're working on. Do you want to share a little bit about what some of those projects are? Because I know again they kind of represent all those different parts of you and they are all super exciting. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what all those things are.
They do. Well, I would say the most exciting thing, because the thing right in front of you is always the most exciting, I
Yeah.
find. And
Yeah.
so right now we are gearing up. I think April Adams Pertwee is someone that you have had on the show,
Yes.
know and love. And April and I have partnered up to create an experience, an authors program, a new authors program, which culminates in the publication of a collaborative book. And
Okay.
so we have one cohort that has finished all of their writing. Their work is currently with editing and design and formatters. So all of that is happening, and we're getting ready to launch or open the doors for our second cohort. So that's super exciting to me.
Yeah.
And this program, what excites me about it, it really fills a need that I wasn't aware that existed, because collaborative books have become something that you see quite commonly, especially in the entrepreneurial world.
Right.
It's a business model, it's something that you see happening a lot. But what you don't see happening as much is the education around that, so
Yeah.
that you're empowering. And that is a core value for me, is to be able to empower others, to take what I've learned, help to elevate other women and empower them to go and to run with this knowledge. And so, yes, it's great to be published in a book. It's wonderful. It's magical to be able to say that you're a published author. But
Mhm.
what's even more magical is then to have the knowledge, the courage, the confidence to go on and publish your own work,
Right.
an entire book that's your work.
Yeah.
So what we do through this program is really, it's a chance for women to dip their toe in. Maybe they've thought they would like to publish a book someday, but it's just too overwhelming to think about. So they
Right.
dip their toe in. It's a group coaching program. So they're learning everything. Like, I'm teaching them publishing terms, because that, talk about intimidating. It's a
Right.
whole different language.
Right. Yeah.
So helping them to know, what are the questions to ask? What are the things to look for? And simultaneously, they're learning, April and her expertise in storytelling. We're really helping the women to pull out, we're not telling the whole story, but what
Mhm.
is a piece of the story that can radiate your message? How is it that you want to serve and impact and show up, and just give people a little taste of
Mhm.
what you have to offer? And some really courageous, powerful stories in this first book, which happens to be called Elevate Your Voice. I'll just drop that there, coming
Love
spring of 2022. But
beautiful.
so that's super exciting. It is the whole process. So we take them from the point of, I have an idea, how do I flesh out this story,
Right.
working with a professional team. So what is it like to work with an editor? That's also something that's a little intimidating. It's very vulnerable
Right.
to share your work,
Right.
and to share your work with someone that you don't know, that it's a professional. And here's true confession for me, like, writing stories and mysteries has always been something that's captivating to me. I love
Mhm.
to read, I love to write, but I am not great at grammar.
Right.
You know,
I don't know
on
that
my
anyone really is.
I I am the person that always was fodder for um correction, right? The people that really are passionate about good grammar, I
Right.
gave them lots of material to practice on because
Right.
it's just not my strength.
Yeah.
But that's why we have editors, though it can feel
Really.
intimidating. So they're getting that. And Laurel, the editor on my team, is so spectacularly compassionate,
Right.
and understanding of first time authors and what this experience is. So not only is she going through the mechanics of doing the copy editing and making recommendations, she's really, it is that soul, that heartfelt connection that she has with each of these women.
Right.
They're going through that process and then seeing, what are the decisions being made? Why are we deciding on certain titles and chapter titles and book design and what goes into all of this? So by the time we are done and they've learned how to market their book and how to leverage it for influence and impact and growing their income, this whole
Mhm.
thing. So in 9 months, on the other side of that, not only do they have a gorgeous book that they can be proud of, they have the tools to now go run with it
Right.
and create and release their own work in the world. And that lights me up.
Yeah. Well, it just feels like the next level, right? It's like most of the programs just kind of stop at, oh, you're an Amazon bestseller and that's it, right? But you really laying the foundation for them to go on and do whatever they feel called to do with that information, right? And you're
Yeah.
giving them the tools and resources that they need to be successful long term.
And as a matter of fact, it's interesting you say about bestseller because that for many, that's a selling point, become a bestseller. And I'm an international bestseller. And yes, it's fun to be able to say that, but it doesn't change your business.
Right.
It's a vanity metric, one
Yeah.
that's nice to have,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's not the be all end all. And so that's not a promise of our program,
Right.
actually. It's
Yeah.
not even a promise. What we're focused more on is education, giving you the tools and elevating you. And I know you'll appreciate this, one of the really cool things also that we've built into this program is that give back component. And
Yeah.
so we're teaching the authors how to leverage the books and sell them and do things on their own. But for our online sales, the Amazon sales, 100% of the net proceeds are being put into microloans for Kiva. So supporting other women in business in the United States and abroad.
Yeah. I love.
So that is special when you talk about ripple effect and the impact. So the impact of their words
Right.
and their stories and the courageous sharing that they're doing, but then in perpetuity, these microloans just continue.
Yeah. Which is
Um, so
fantastic.
it does feel very next level. It feels purposeful. It
Yeah.
feels like it's a needle mover,
Yeah.
right?
Which is how, I mean, that's to me, waking up every day and feeling like you're making an impact and a difference in a way that feels really good to you is
Yes.
that's everything, right? And I think, one thing you said earlier about the way you work with clients in terms of life and business strategy, I'm the same way. I do a lot of that work as well. And
Right.
I always talk about, like, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to be on the phone all day long? Do you want to be
Yes.
on, calls? Like, is that how you want to spend your time? Like, let's really get honest about how we want our life to look and then design the business around that, right? And I think that's such a beautiful thing that you've done for yourself, and you're also obviously helping other women do that as well. So
Right.
lovely.
Yeah, and I can bring all of that, and I do bring all of that expertise to the table with this process, so it can help people stay centered and focused on not losing sight of why are we
Right.
doing this work.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Well, I just want you to know that I'm so thrilled that you are part of the collective, the Soul Centered CEO
Thank
collective,
you.
and just so excited to journey with you into 2022 and beyond. And for any of you that are listening that want to get more details on all the things that you're up to, they need to go to shegetspublished.com. Is
Yep.
that the right website?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where I would say I'll be updating things as they come out. There'll be links there once we open the doors for the next cohort.
Okay.
That will be all available there. So shegetspublished.com, and the main focus there right now is the podcast. So
Okay.
if you're interested in, finding out a little bit about what is it like to become an independently published author, what is
Yeah,
that process like? I provide bite-sized lessons there
perfect.
because it can be very overwhelming. So they're very short,
Yeah.
sweet lessons. And I encourage people to check that out while they're waiting to find other information.
Great. All right. And we'll put the link to that obviously in the notes here as well. So thank you
Perfect.
so much for your time today. Such a blessing. Always love our minutes together, but I'm excited for all that's unfolding and all the magic that you're creating and that you and April are creating together. It just feels really, really powerful. And I love again just the vision and the mission of elevating women's voices. So thank you.
Mm,
Thank you. Thank you.
I so
And
appreciate you. Thanks.
you bet. And for all of you that are listening, thank you so much for tuning in this week. And we look forward to having you with us on the next episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show.